Thank you for joining us today for this mini pig Q&A hosted by Mazuri. I'm Kimberly Chronister, founder and vice president of the American Mini Pig Association, and I'm here with Dr. Troy Tollefson, nutritionist with Mazuri Exotic Animal Nutrition. We're happy to be here today to have a casual discussion about all things mini pig. If you are thinking of owning a pig as a pet, or you are already an owner and you're just looking for advice on care, nutrition, or training, we're here to do our best to answer your questions. If we don't get to them while we're live, the Mazuri team will follow up with answers after the event. So please comment with where you're from and any questions you may have for us. I'll take a moment to just introduce a little bit about the American Mini Pig Association while we're waiting for people to log on and kind of ask some questions. We are a team dedicated to educating, advocating, and protecting mini pigs as pets. We are an association for owners, breeders, veterinarians, and rescues. We are just there to provide support, information, love, and protection for mini pigs and their caregivers. Anyone new to mini pigs who would like to own a pig as a pet but has just never had that experience? We'd love to answer those questions. Existing mini pig owners, we like to hear from you too. We know there's always questions about training and care. Dr. Troy, would you like to speak a little bit about nutrition?
Sure. Hi, my name is Troy Tollefson, and I'm a nutritionist with Mazuri Exotic Animal Nutrition, and we make diets for mini pigs, the youth, active adult, and elder. And one of those common questions we get with mini pigs are, how much should I feed my mini pig? And really, it's a complicated question, but in general, a young pig will eat between 1.5% to 3% of its body weight, and as they age, they're going to go from about 1% to 2% of their body weight, and that's pretty common. But the part that becomes complicated is simply how much their activity level is. If a pig's laying around and not moving a lot, their energy level's not going to be quite as high, and so if your pig is very active, you might have to feed it a little bit more. Or if it's pregnant and lactating, you definitely need to feed it a little bit more. So that's a very common question we get. But yeah.
And there's really no one size fits all answer because every pig is going to be different on their needs, like you said, based on activity, etc. It's a tricky question. It should be easy to answer, but it's not always.
Yeah.
I see we have a question about, will my mini pig get along with my dog? That's a good question. Mini pigs are very social animals and they do like to be around other pets. However, dogs and pigs relationships can get very complicated. Dogs don't speak pig, pigs don't speak dog. They have different body language. The pigs are very intelligent and can sometimes antagonize the dog, and they just would always need to be supervised because we can never predict what is going to happen there. So always, always, always supervise dogs with pigs. They should never be left alone, but they can be friends. How large does a mini pig grow to? This is a great question. Mini pigs are going to grow 15 inches or taller. This is based off of the statistics that the American Mini Pig Association has collected from owners and breeders on size. And we have determined that by 5 years old, all mini pigs are going to be 15 inches or taller. You're not going to find a 10-inch or 12-inch mini pig. They're just not that short. They're going to continue to grow. Weight is always a question that is asked. It's really difficult to predict the weight of a pig. It's difficult to predict what the weight of your own child will be when they're an adult. So we go with a range of 50 to 150 pounds, healthy body condition, a healthy diet, but they can get obese quite quickly if you're not really watching what you feed them and providing them with those healthy supplemental meals. Pigs are pigs. They are always going to be demanding and wanting to eat. Sometimes boredom is mistaken for hunger. And I think a lot of owners don't really take the time to do other things like enrichment activities to keep their pigs occupied. Instead, they may just throw an extra meal to quiet the pig, and that can lead to obesity quite quickly.
Yeah, so Kimberly, just to add on to what you're saying about the growing pig, there's a question that, how much should we feed the growing pig, or what diet should we feed them? And really, you start off your mini pig with the Mazuri youth diet, and that diet's the highest energy, lowest fiber, a little bit more digestible for your young growing pig. And usually, typically, you're going to feed it up to 16 weeks on the youth diet, and then transitioning over to the active adult diet. And that the names are a little bit confusing, active and elder. And the elder doesn't necessarily mean the old senior type mini pig, but it can be switched over to the elder diet as soon as 18 months, 18 months to 3 years in that time frame. But it's a lower energy type diet. And so as your mini pig grows in size, switching it up to a little bit lower calories, to what Kimberly was saying, is that sometimes out of boredom they want to eat more, and it helps control their weight a little bit better. So getting them on that elder diet a little bit sooner is something that'll be helpful for them. Another question we got is, what's a major deficiency or differences between our diet, say, and other diets on the market? And I'll just compare with our, some of the most common pig diets on the market are really designed for production animals. These production animals, historically were made to get pigs up to a certain body weight and as quickly as possible. The mini pig, that's not what you want. You're thinking about longevity. You're thinking of health. How well is that your mini pig gonna be around? I mean, it's part of your household. Now, with these production diets, they're getting them up, growing them really fast, and that's not the healthiest thing for your mini pig. And so that's one of the biggest differences, is that those components. Our Missouri diets are thinking about that longevity, so higher fiber, lower energy. The minerals and nutrients that are put into those diets are helping it, thinking about that long-term survival, you might say, of your animal. Yeah. And another great question is, can I feed my pig table scraps? That's never a good thing. I do it with the animals I have occasionally. You want to give them a treat, you want to reward them. And if you do that in a very small amount, that's okay. And, you can do that. But if you do it at too high of a level, it dilutes the diet overall. And that's not going to be a good thing. You're diluting the nutrition of that animal. And so we recommend, really 75% of the diet to be the Missouri mini pig diet, with 25% being hay and some produce. And, those table scraps, is really small amount of treats, you might say. And really, those should be reserved for training or rewards when you're trying to get them to do something. So, yeah, great question. Another question, a really good one, and this one commonly comes up, is about skin and coat supplements. And the first thing that people should know when they're going to consider buying a mini pig is all pigs have skin issues. It's very, very common for dry skin and scaly and flaky skin with pigs. And it's not necessarily anything you're doing wrong. Now, it could be a nutrition problem for sure, but at the same time, part of it is a lot of mini pigs don't have pigmented skin, or pigs in general don't always have pigmented skins. And outdoor exposure, just like you or I, if we're out there and we're getting a sunburn, that can happen with a mini pig as well. Another one is commonly around like the fluid around their eyes that come out. It's kind of a reddish, darkish coloration. That, if it's not wiped off and clean, can lead to some skin issues. And that's a normal, want to say process with a pig. Now, the supplements that we do add, there's a lot of different supplements. It's not much different than with people, but you have to consider those different types. And, zinc, vitamin E, vitamin C, all that supplementation is important with the mini pig. Biotin is one of the most important B vitamins that are in there, and considering that in your mini pig diet. We added flaxseed, which is a great omega-3 fatty acid source, and that was added a few years ago, considering that and thinking about the skin issues that some mini pigs have had. So those are great supplements to add for mini pig health.
If you are just joining us, I am Kimberly Chronister, the founder and vice president of the American Mini Pig Association, here with Dr. Troy Tollefson, a nutritionist with Mazuri. And we are here to answer any questions you might have regarding mini pigs. So if you're thinking about getting a mini pig and you've never had that experience of being around one and you have any questions, we would be happy to answer that. Are you interested, or do you have any questions as an owner? Anything about training that you'd like to know? Anything about maintenance, hoof maintenance, tusk maintenance? We'd be happy to answer those questions for you. Mini pigs. Are mini pigs good with kids? Mini pigs can be good with kids. Mini pigs are very nervous animals. So initially, pigs need to be introduced slowly to children, because we know children like to move fast and loud. That's kind of just how they roll. And that's the opposite of like to be approached. They want to be approached slowly and quietly. Older pigs, I think, do very well with children. Same rules apply. If you're going to approach even an older pig who's even been experienced with family children, you're going to want to go slow and quietly. But yeah, they can be great companions for children, as long as it's there's rules for the kids.
That's a good point. That's a good thing just to mention is one of the largest problems with mini pigs is obesity, right? And it's a good reason why to keep the mini pig in a healthy weight. Sometimes when you have a mini pig that has a lot of excess skin around the face and it kind of obscures the vision, the mini pig actually, as they get approached, may get startled a lot easier. So keeping your mini pig in a healthy condition actually has a lot more other behavioral aspects to consider.
That is a great point, and that brings up a great question that I have. Obviously, I know the answer to some degree, but I'd love to hear how you express it. What are the signs that you're overfeeding your pig? What are the signs that you're underfeeding?
That's a great question, and sometimes that's a little bit harder to say, right? If you're overfeeding your pig, it's really the biggest sign is the body condition. There are scoring charts out there, and being able to visually see the pig. Now, when I was in the zoo, the best way to be able to get an idea, because when you see your animal every day in and day out, it's really difficult to see that gradual transition. So if you're not able to weigh them, taking a photo and looking at it over a period of time can give you that visual scale, you might say. If you can get them weighed, that's always the better way to do it. But if you can't, that photo over a period of time does it. And then there's some body condition charts that are out there that can help kind of guide along that as well. So yeah, if you're underfeeding the pig, they can be they may get a little bit more irritated, like what you said earlier. They may get nippy at people because they're just getting a little irritated. When they see their food, I mean, mini pigs in general are going to enjoy their food, right? But if you notice a little bit more abnormal behavior of really, running over and getting their food. It's just something a little bit more aggressive, you might say, in terms of trying to get to their food. Is a good sign of indication of that. Great question. I got a question here as well as what's the difference between youth and adult? And there's again that's a great question, and the fiber component is one, and the digestibility of the food. The nutrients are adjusted for a little bit older pig, but we also have like an acid or urine acidifier in the active and the adult diets that the youth diet does not have, and that's thinking about preventing stone formation in them. The extra features is kind of increasing that supplementation for that skin issue as they get to an older pig. I mean, so there's different things to consider about with humans, for example. Your vitamin D level actually, your ability to synthesize vitamin D decreases with age. So when you're looking at a mini pig, you're thinking about those nutrients that you're putting in those diets compared to what is going to be appropriate for them. So, yeah. Another question, and there's my Kun, and she's 1.5 years. And how much should I be feeding? That's a great question. It's usually that range from 1 to 2% of body weight, and I would, depending on their body condition, 1% may be more appropriate, with about 75% of it is pellets and 25% of it is hay. Now, as they get older, and so that it's right in that range right there where you would start decreasing the pellets to about 60%, and about 40% could be that hay/produce portion of that diet. And that's simply thinking about the calorie intake and adding that hay. It's the importance of hay. It's a great fiber source. It's lower energy, and it helps keep the mini pig fuller longer. And that's important, just because, like Kimberly said earlier, their drive is going to be toward that food. They're going to like to eat it, and you want to be able to. It's a good way to minimize their aggressive behavior and intake and keep them fuller longer. Yeah, great question. And another one is, what are your thoughts about a natural diet? So natural diets are good. If you're having your mini pigs out there grazing on grass and like that, the only thing that I would say is it really depends on the variety they get. So pigs in the wild, great example. I used to live in Florida, and there were pigs everywhere out there, and as we'd go hiking, and you would see them where they'd root up into the ground, and they would go everywhere. And the variety of food that they would get wasn't consistent to a small patch of land. When you have an area in a small patch of land, you're limited to that soil consistency and the uptake of those nutrients into the plants. So all that means is the nutrition could be highly variable, could be good, could be bad on your land. And so adding a supplementation of like one of the Mazuri diets helps provide that constant nutrition, whereas the soil could be deficient in selenium, which is often the case in the Pacific Northwest and Southeast U.S. Other nutrients can be high or low, and it's really variable and area specific. So, part of a natural diet's always good. They're just kind of limited when you're just in your small yard. How often do I need to feed my mini pig? They'd be happy if you fed them all the time, right? So you could feed them, 1 to 3 times a day, but one time, I wouldn't recommend that. I mean, because if you feed them once a day, they're going to end up gorging. They're going to eat a lot in one intake, and they're going to end up eating all their food, and they're going to be really hungry. And so the more often that you actually feed them, the happier they're going to be. Now, caveat to that is, if you feed them more often, you don't feed them as much every time. You have to limit the amount and divide it up over the course of the day. And making sure that you add in like that hay component, that's good, and it'll help them stay fuller longer. Mm-hmm. Water and water availability is a good question. I mean, all animals really need to have water intake, and as when you eat a pelleted diet, it doesn't contain as much water as a fresh natural forage, right? So you could look. A good example I like it to always use is if you look at romaine lettuce. Now that's not grass, but it's kind of the same concept. Romaine has about 95% water in it. A pelleted diet is going to have about 10% water in it. So there's a big difference. And so when you provide any type of a dry diet, you want to have that water availability to them. But then on top of that is, it's considering the issue with stone formation with mini pigs, water intake actually helps reduce the risk of that. And so having fresh water, having the water available to them all the time, the more water that they can have, really the better it is for them. It's just encouraging them to drink it and making sure you have fresh water available. Yeah.
Okay, any more questions? We're here for you. We'd like to be able to answer any questions that you may have. This is a great opportunity to get great, fantastic nutritional advice directly from Dr. Troy, and I'm here to talk about training, basic mini pig care, what to consider before you take a piglet in or adopt an older piglet. We'd love to answer those questions for you. Let's take a look at some of the most important things to consider before adding a pig as a pet. This is information that most people don't have before they take that leap into becoming a pig owner. Number one, zoning. I had no idea that zoning for mini pigs even existed when I got my first pet. You have to check with your local city government to see if they even allow pigs as pets before you start searching for your mini pig. This is also true for HOAs. If you happen to live in a subdivision, HOAs can have their own guidelines that override those of your local government. So it's very, very important that if you own a home in a subdivision that you check with your HOA before you add a pig as a pet. Vet. You must vet who's experienced treating mini pigs. They have some very basic care that needs to be done every year. A lot of that you can manage yourself at home, such as dewormings or hoof maintenance. But as pigs get older, we find that their owners can't handle the hoof trimmings or the tusk trimmings, and so you need a vet. What if you have an emergency? That's so, so, so important. You have to have an experienced mini pig vet. And you can find a map, ampavets.com, and we have listed vets there that have been referred by owners who have used them, so that's a good resource. Also, do you own your home? This is so important. If you do not own your home, it's highly likely that you're not going to be allowed to have a pig as a renters. Landlords don't understand, and it's just very, very difficult to find a rental property that's going to accept a pig. You also need a safe fenced yard. That's extremely important. Even if you intend to train your pig to walk on a leash and harness, you still need fenced space so your pig can graze and roam. Breeder versus rescue. That's a great, great, great consideration. It's something to put a lot of thought into. We recommend that you start with a breeder map, ampabreeders.com. Look for a trusted, screened, a registered breeder. They can then talk to you, educate you, and decide what's right for you, and they can help you find either a piglet that's the right match for your family or a rescue pig that would be a great fit for your family. Spay and neuter, absolute must. Your pig has to be spayed or neutered. That should happen where you actually take custody of the pig. Let the breeder or the rescue make those arrangements to get those procedures done. Size. That's something that's very important, is to be accepting of the fact that you're not going to know how big your pig is going to grow. It could be 15 inches tall at maturity or 20, and you need to be fine with that. Weight-wise, we talked about 50 to 150 pounds, healthy body condition. Can you manage a 150-pound animal? Are you willing to be able to transport, get in and out of the car? I mean, there's a lot of things to consider about that with size and weight. And then intelligence. These are highly, highly, highly intelligent and emotional animals. And so they require a little extra effort and care by their owners, because that intelligence, it's such a gift, but it's also such an annoyance and burden, because they get so bored so easily. And so if you're not someone who really enjoys engaging with your animals basis and training and giving them that consistent care that they need, and then the attention that they need, it may be too much manage. I mean, it is literally like adding a 2-year-old child to the family, except they never mature mentally. They stay a 2-year-old child, so you're dealing with a toddler, which if you're a parent, you know you have to stay 2 or 3 steps ahead of the child all the time. And it's the same with the pigs. You have to have those safety features in place, cabinet locks, no food below waist high anywhere in your home. There's just a lot of things you have to be thinking about all the time to stay ahead of your pig and keep them out of trouble. And so that's something to really think about. And then it's a lifetime commitment, 15 to 20 years, and they get very, very emotionally attached to their owners. So you can't just give up on the pig once you've changed your mind. You have to really commit to that for the whole lifetime of your relationship. And I see Dr. Troy, what kind of veggies do you recommend?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, with veggies, a lot of that has to do with availability of what's at your supermarket, right? I found that very quickly when I worked in the zoo world. What we feed our animals is not what they necessarily eat in the wild, and so you have to get what you can get locally at your supermarket. And in general, produce, it's really supplemental. It does have vitamins and minerals in there, but we don't really consider it that, because produce is highly variable. How long it's been stored, shipped, all that. A lot of those nutrients are decreasing over time, and variable depending on what soil it's grown in, right? So it's really supplemental. And as the pig gets older, you can increase the amount of produce that's in its diet. So it's between the hay and the produce is really 25% up until about 18 months. And then after that, it's 40%. But I wouldn't say 40% of that diet's produce. Majority of it should be that hay, and then a small portion of it produce. And again, using that as rewards, treats, things that, you know, they're going to want to work for and getting to it. It can be very costly and expensive really quickly if you're feeding a lot of produce to them. And, you know, same thing, you don't want to feed old produce to them. So they can eat it. It's not bad, but it's just kind of a variety that you can get at your supermarket.
Oh, I've been asked to introduce the piglet too. If you can see in the background, we have a little piglet roaming around. She hasn't been, we haven't chosen a name yet. She's staying here with me, and she just spent last weekend at an educational event, and she was an absolute rock star. She loved the attention. She loved letting visitors come by and see what it looks like versus an adult pig. We had probably 75% of our visitors ask if she was full grown, which is shocking because she's a 9-week-old piglet. Come here, baby. Around here, over here. But yes, she doesn't have a name yet, but she's a superstar, and I'm sure she'll be around. If you're in the mini pig community, you're going to see again. Now, this is all the time we have for today, but please keep posting your questions, and then they will get answered. But thank you so much for tuning in. This has been really fun. Thank you, Dr. Troy. It's been a learning opportunity for me, just even sitting here as an next person. So I'm glad that anyone else out there had the opportunity to hear you speak.
You're welcome, and thank you for inviting me to come on today.
Thank you.